An ancient Roman coin bears the profile of an emperor, a simple, everyday symbol of power and order. But for a group of people huddled in the catacombs, that cold piece of metal wasn't currency. It was the mark of the beast itself. And the book where they encoded their terror wasn't some prophecy about a far-flung future. It was a desperate scream from a present that was on fire. The apocalypse, Judgment Day, the end of the world. It's a grim theme that crops up, one way or another, in countless world religions. In Christianity, the final book of the Bible, the book of Revelation, delivers a terrifying vision of cataclysmic events, demonic horsemen, and, just for good measure, a few biblically accurate multi-eyed angels thrown into the mix. It is, hands down, the most cryptic and disturbing book in the entire Bible, and naturally, it's a topic that's proven too juicy to ignore. Many have heard of the book of Revelation, but few are familiar with what it actually contains. For instance, where does the number 6666 fit into all of this? For anyone looking to get a better handle on the Bible's doomsday prophecy, this will be your crash course. You never know when this kind of knowledge might come in handy. A quick heads up before we dive in. We'll be looking at Revelation from a secular, non-religious standpoint. The book is symbolic to its core, and taking it literally is probably a bad idea. So, throughout this account, we'll occasionally explain some of the symbols based on the interpretations of biblical scholars. With that disclaimer out of the way, let's get to the apocalypse itself. The word apocalypse actually comes from Greek and literally means an unveiling or a revealing, which is exactly why the book is called Revelation in the first place. The whole narrative is about something being revealed, in this case, the end of the world. The Old Testament has a long tradition of this kind of apocalyptic writing, but it isn't always about the end of the world. Sometimes it's just a mind-bending vision of another world, like Ezekiel's glimpse of God's throne, or Daniel's dream of 4 bizarre beasts. The book of Revelation is written from the perspective of a man named John. We don't know much about him. He's not John the Baptist, nor is he the John who wrote the 4th Gospel. Nope, this is a completely different John. Turns out, the Bible is lousy with Johns. What's more, some scholars think this particular John might not have even been a real person. Like most books in the Bible, Revelation was likely written and edited by a committee of anonymous authors, making John a convenient pen name. Researchers say the oldest part of the book was probably written around 65 AD, during the reign of Emperor Nero, while it may have been finalized around 95 AD, under Emperor Domitian. Both rulers, but especially Nero, were notorious for their brutal persecution of the early Christians, and that context is key to understanding the mindset behind Revelation. This book was forged in a terrifying time for the first Christians, and all their anxieties are baked right into its pages, creating a chilling collection of doomsday visions. Let's get to the vision itself. We begin on the idyllic Greek island of Patmos, where our protagonist, John, has been exiled. Suddenly, he hears a voice like a trumpet blast behind him, calling his name. He turns to see a ghostly figure, bathed in brilliant light and surrounded by 7 golden lampstands. This unnamed being, who some believe to be Jesus himself, has a very strange appearance. It's dressed in a white robe, its eyes are like flames of fire, and a sharp, double-edged sword is coming out of its mouth. Yes, that's in the text, and trust us, that's not even close to the weirdest thing we're about to see. The mysterious figure tells John to write to 7 churches scattered across the Mediterranean to warn them of the events to come. No sooner has he done this than John is whisked away to heaven. From there, he gives a breathtaking report of everything he sees. Before him is a massive throne, with 24 other thrones surrounding it. The central throne glows so brightly, like 1,000 gemstones, that he can't make out the figure sitting on it. But it's a safe bet that this is God himself. His attention, however, is quickly drawn to 4 strange, multi-eyed beasts hovering near the throne. While the Bible simply calls them living creatures, you might know them better as the biblically accurate angels we talk about so much on this channel. The description he gives them is wild. Now, you may have seen my video on biblically accurate angels and recognize these creatures from the Old Testament's book of Ezekiel. They appear in a magnificent vision of God's celestial throne revealed to the Hebrew prophet. In that video, I suggested they likely evolved from the Mesopotamian cherubim known as the lamassu. Sadly, though, you won't find any of those freaky eye-covered wheels, the ophanim, in this particular account. Not much more is said about these 4 otherworldly hybrids. While some interpret their many eyes as a symbol of God's all-seeing nature, others see it as an intentionally creepy image. I don't know about you, but I can definitely see their point. After describing the 4 living creatures, John is presented with yet another strange beast. It's described as a lamb, though it has 7 horns and 7 eyes, because of course it does. It looks as though it has been slain. Because of this, many associate this creature with Jesus, who is sometimes called the Lamb of God. Whoever it is, this lamb creature is holding a large scroll with 7 wax seals. And this is where the apocalypse truly kicks off. When the first seal is broken, a man on a white horse appears, holding a bow and wearing a crown. This is the personification of conquest, the first of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The second seal is broken, and a rider on a red horse appears, holding a great sword. This is the horseman of war, which sounds a lot like conquest to me. But hey, what do I know? The third seal is broken, and out rides a horseman on a black horse, holding a pair of scales. This is the horseman of famine. Finally, the 4th seal is broken, and a horseman on a pale horse appears, the embodiment of death itself. With 4 of the 7 seals broken, the lamb creature gives the 4 horsemen power over a quarter of the earth's population, to destroy them through violence, famine, plague, or death. So, that's 3 seals left, and 3 more calamities to come. Thankfully, the 5th seal is a bit of a breather. Nothing much happens, except that the souls of the martyrs are given beautiful white robes and told to wait just a little while longer for Judgment Day. But when the 6th seal is opened, things on earth take a very dark turn. The moment the seal is broken, a giant earthquake occurs, so massive that every mountain and island was moved out of his place. Taken literally, an earthquake of this magnitude would blow the Richter scale's biggest recorded quakes, like the 1960 Valdivia quake in Chile, which hit 9.5, out of the water. An earthquake that powerful would be especially bad news for anyone living on a fault line. In addition to the cataclysmic earthquake, the 6th seal will also cause the sky to turn black. If this were to happen, the perpetual darkness would have a devastating effect on the earth, especially on plant life, which needs sunlight for photosynthesis. Interestingly, events like this have actually happened before and were often caused by major volcanic eruptions. In 536 AD, during a period of European history aptly called the Dark Ages, a giant volcanic eruption, likely in Indonesia, triggered a so-called volcanic winter. This happens when huge amounts of volcanic ash are thrown into the atmosphere, dimming the sunlight and causing a sharp drop in temperature. The Byzantine historian Procopius writing from Constantinople in 536, noted, "A most dread portent took place, for the sun gave forth its light without brightness, and it seemed exceedingly like the sun in eclipse, for the beams it shed were not clear." Other contemporary writers, even as far away as Ireland, testified to the same extreme weather, suggesting the phenomenon may have been widespread at the time, and that the earth was indeed in a state of volcanic winter. If giant earthquakes and volcanic winters weren't enough, the sixth seal also describes how the stars of heaven fell unto the earth. If a real star collided with Earth, it would be game over, for real, as the Earth would be consumed by a much larger ball of fire and plasma. So, it's more likely the author is referring to a meteor shower. Often, these are completely harmless. The Earth passes through tons of space rocks every day, resulting in beautiful shooting stars. Things get dangerous, however, when these rocks are large enough not to burn up completely in the atmosphere. One such case was the 1908 Tunguska event, when a meteoroid about 100 meters across slammed into eastern Siberia, flattening the surrounding forest for up to 200 square kilometers, or 830 square miles. Since this was Siberia, the area was sparsely populated, so it's thought that only 3 people died. Had that happened over a city back in 1908, the devastation would have been off the charts. The sixth seal brings brutal punishments, megaquakes, perpetual darkness, and falling meteors, but there's still one seal left, the seventh. Luckily, just like the fifth seal, the seventh doesn't unleash any major new disasters. The book simply states, "There was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour." Maybe those multi-eyed creatures we talked about earlier finally got a break from singing God's praises. You'd think 7 seals would be enough to do Earth in. But oh no, there's more where that came from. Almost as soon as the 7th seal is opened, up pop 7 angels with 7 trumpets. You've probably noticed the number 7 pops up quite a bit in the book of Revelation. 7 golden lampstands, 7 seals, now 7 trumpets. The number 7 is significant throughout the entire Bible. For instance, the book of Genesis reports that it took 7 days to create the universe. In the ancient world, it was often considered the number of completion. This idea of the number 7's special status carried over into later Christian tradition, where there are also 7 deadly sins, which, by the way, is another topic I've covered on this channel. Forget everything you've seen about cute little cherubs with tiny trumpets. These 7 trumpets are about to wreck the earth. Things are about to get dark, and in the case of the 4th trumpet, I mean that literally. Let's do a quick rundown of what each trumpet does. The 1st trumpet unleashes a storm of fire and hail on the earth. Wildfires soon rage across the planet, and 1/3 of the world's vegetation is burned to a crisp. The 2nd trumpet sounds, and something the size of a great mountain slams into the sea, turning 1/3 of the oceans to blood. It also takes out 1/3 of all innocent sea creatures, which is a real bummer. The 3rd trumpet sounds, and a star falls from the sky, landing in the earth's rivers. The star is even given a name, wormwood. This is actually a type of semi-poisonous herb, also known as artemisia, which tracks, given we're in Revelation, because wormwood pollutes all the world's fresh water supplies, making them bitter and toxic. The 4th trumpet blows, and 1/3 of the sun goes out, plunging the planet into darkness. It seems we already ran into this with the 6th seal. This little inconsistency has led some scholars to think we're dealing with a different author here, one who might not have known about the previous destruction brought by the 7 seals. The 5th trumpet is, in my opinion, the weirdest of the bunch. An angel descends to earth with a large key. The key opens a massive hatch to a bottomless pit, and from the pit comes thick black smoke that blots out what's left of the sunlight. Then, from the dense plumes of smoke, giant locusts swarm out, plaguing the land. But these aren't just any giant locusts. These are Revelation giant locusts, and so they're given a deeply unsettling description. Here it is. They've got human faces and long, flowing hair. They're wearing armor and tiny little crowns on their heads. Oh, and they also have lion's teeth and giant scorpion stingers, because again, why not? These creatures are instructed to sting people, but not to kill them. In fact, it's said that during this time, people won't be able to die, no matter how hard they try. Truly, the stuff of nightmares, but there are still 2 trumpets to go. The 6th trumpet sounds, and 4 angels are unleashed to kill 1/3 of humanity, all of them helping to wipe out 1/3 of the human population. The final, 7th trumpet doesn't bring destruction. Instead, there's a little hymn for those in heaven, and a few flashes of lightning here and there, but no major destruction on the ground. At this point, I imagine the world is pretty much uninhabitable. I'm starting to think calling this video a survival guide might be a bit of a stretch. The waters turn to blood, everything's on fire, there's no sunlight, and giant manticore-like locusts are stinging people. The book of Revelation really went all out to paint the most catastrophic picture possible. Believe it or not, there's more misery on the way, but this time in the form of 3 giant monsters. The first to appear is a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. So, 2 of the 7 heads have 2 horns. The dragon is so massive that with a sweep of its tail, it apparently swats 1/3 of the stars out of the sky. We learn that the red dragon is Satan himself, who is suddenly attacked and defeated by the archangel Michael. This dragon Satan is cast out of heaven and thrown down to earth, and the earth swallows him up. After that weird little interlude, we get to the main event. 2 so-called beasts. The first beast comes out of the sea. This first beast has the body of a leopard. It has the feet of a bear and the mouth of a lion. It has several heads, and surprise, surprise, there are 7 of them. Like the dragon, it has 10 horns, and on each horn is a crown. One of the heads, however, looks like it's been wounded. After climbing out of the sea, this beast starts spouting blasphemies against God and uttering all sorts of profanities. The survivors on Earth, oh yeah, apparently there are survivors, all start worshiping this monster. Then, suddenly, the ground opens up and another strange beast emerges from below. Compared to the first beast, its description is a little less detailed. All we're told is that it has 2 horns like a lamb, but speaks like a dragon, and that's about it. This beast goes around telling the people of Earth how great beast number 1 is, performing all sorts of great signs to prove its point. This character later becomes known as the false prophet, though you might know him better by a name used in other Christian texts, the Antichrist, which literally means anti-Messiah. So yeah, seeing this monster is not a good sign. This beast marks its idol worshippers everywhere with a special number, the famous mark of the beast, the number 6666. So, what's the deal with this number? Many biblical scholars suggest it's a coded reference to the tyrannical Emperor Nero. You see, in the ancient world, there was a practice of assigning numerical values to letters, known as gematria. A similar system existed in Hebrew, and if you write out the name Emperor Nero in that language, the numerical values of its letters add up to exactly 666. In some of the oldest versions of the Book of Revelation, like a papyrus manuscript found in Oxyrhynchus, Egypt, The number is actually 616. The gematria still works here, just for a different spelling of Nero's name. Notably, Revelation says that to conduct business, to buy and sell, you have to show the mark of the beast. Like modern money, Roman coins often featured the head of state, in this case, the emperor. Therefore, to do business, you had to show the mark of the beast, that is, the face of Emperor Nero on a coin. This interpretation is further supported by the Greek word charagma, used for the mark of the beast, which was most often used to describe the minting of coins. So what's the connection between Emperor Nero and the beast? Emperor Nero, who reigned from 54 to 68 AD, was notorious for his brutal persecution of Christians. Early Christians refused to worship the emperor, who was considered a divine figure in the imperial cult. Instead, they professed faith exclusively in their God, the God of Israel. This enraged many Roman emperors, especially Nero, who launched a campaign to wipe them out. He even blamed Christians for the Great Fire of Rome, and contemporary writers left horrific accounts of the suffering he inflicted, like throwing Christians to the lions. As a result, Nero became the ultimate symbol of evil. So when Revelation talks about worshiping the beast, it's using coded language to mean the imperial cult. All those who bear the mark of 666, in other words, Nero, will be doomed to eternal torment. Meanwhile, as the earth is being run by these freaky beasts, aka Roman emperors, up in heaven, the angels are getting ready for the final round of destruction. Following the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets, it's time for the 7 bowls. These bowls are said to be full of the wrath of God, with all that implies. Anyway, the bowls work a lot like the seals and the trumpets. When their contents are poured out onto the earth, terrible things happen. And so, here we go again with the plagues, this time the final ones. The first bowl is poured onto the land, and painful sores and boils break out on everyone who has the mark of the beast. The second bowl turns the entire sea into blood, not just a third. The third bowl turns all fresh water, lakes and rivers, into blood. Blood really is the running theme here. The fourth bowl causes the sun to blaze with an insane heat, brutally scorching people on earth. The fifth bowl plunges the beast's kingdom into darkness, leading to political instability. Some see this as a nod to the fall of the Roman Empire. The sixth bowl dries up the Euphrates River in modern-day Iraq. Later, all the armies of the world gather for a battle in a place known as Armageddon. Fun fact, the Hebrew word for Armageddon is Har Megiddo, meaning the Mount of Megiddo in northern Israel. Over time, Har Megiddo morphed into Armageddon, and thanks to Revelation, became another synonym for the apocalypse. The seventh bowl brings the signature Revelation disasters: lightning, hail, and a colossal earthquake that destroys the city of Babylon. However, while Babylon was the great evil city in the Old Testament, by the time the New Testament was written, it had long been in ruins, conquered by the Persians 500 years earlier. Therefore, many scholars believe Babylon is code for the empire's capital, Rome. This is another example of the symbolic, coded language Revelation is written in. After this third and final round of destruction, which might seem a tad excessive, the vision from the book of Revelation begins to draw to a close. The end comes surprisingly fast. With barely a fight, the first and second beasts are captured by God's army and thrown, to quote the text, into a lake of fire burning with sulfur, which is, by all accounts, a metaphor for hell. Then the giant, multi-headed dragon, aka Satan, is locked away in the abyss and sealed there for 1,000 years. During this time, Jesus descends to earth to rule until the action kicks off again. 1,000 years fly by in the blink of an eye, and Satan is set free. The stage is set for the final, decisive battle of truly biblical proportions. But the finale of this whole biblical saga turns out to be, well, a bit of an anticlimax in its brevity. All that happens is a pillar of fire descends from the heavens and incinerates the army of darkness. Satan and all his monstrous minions are hurled into the lake of fire and brimstone, joining the beasts, and his corrupting influence is finally snuffed out. The book of Revelation draws to a close, and we get the Bible's happily ever after. A vision of the so-called New Jerusalem appears, a description of a wondrous new city made of pure gold. Our protagonist, John, details its dimensions, and it turns out that the New Jerusalem is a gigantic cube. Its length, width, and height are 12,000 stadia, which is about 2,220 kilometers or 1,380 miles. In this city, God, Jesus, all the righteous, and those many-eyed creatures live in eternal harmony. And it is with this vision of a strange, almost sci-fi megastructure that the book of Revelation, and with it the entire Bible, comes to an end. Without a doubt, the book of Revelation is the weirdest book in the Bible, capping off its narrative with a whirlwind of fire, earthquakes, otherworldly creatures, chaos, and catastrophe. If such an event were to happen in real life, it would obviously be a pretty grim ordeal. In a book this complex and multifaceted, I've only managed to scratch the surface, hitting the main plot points. If you'd like me to dive deeper into any aspects of this story that piqued your interest, let me know in the comments below. A recurring theme in this and many other New Testament books is the idea that Jesus will return, bringing with him the second coming and a fiery cataclysm. The very first Christian communities believed this would all go down in their own lifetimes, but when it never materialized, the hope was passed down to the next generation, and the next, right up to the present day. Throughout history, theologians and lay people alike have tried to pinpoint when the apocalypse would happen, trying to read the tea leaves for any warning signs of its approach. Often, if not always, they were spectacularly wrong, sometimes making absolute fools of themselves. Just as Pope Sylvester II feared the year 1000 would mark the end of the world, some fretted about the year 2000, terrified of the Y2K bug, which was supposed to make computers crash and trigger a global technological meltdown. More recently, plenty of people pegged 2012 as the next big doomsday date. Misguided fears about the Mayan calendar led some to believe that Earth was on a collision course with the fictional planet Nibiru. But just as the Mayan calendar rolled on, so did the Gregorian, and well, we're all still here. In my opinion, it's doubtful anyone will ever be able to predict exactly when the world will end, so we can probably all just relax for now. People have been wrong in the past, and we can only hope they'll keep on being wrong in the future. Thanks for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I had an absolute blast making it. If you like this kind of content, especially in this long-form style, why not subscribe to the channel? A like and a comment would also be a massive help. After a bit of a hiatus from posting while I was finishing my university dissertation, I'm happy to say I have now officially graduated. Thank you all for your patience. More videos are on the way, I promise. I've got a backlog of video ideas that I can't wait to get started on. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.